How much zone 2 do you need? That's our topic today. Let's bring that pyramid back and have a look. I chose the colors with intent. You'll see the metabolic slice is light green, and the general capacity slice is darker green. And really what I was trying to symbolize there is the mix between zone 1 and throwing in some zone 2. And zone 1 is up to that first point where lactate ticks up. So it's the zone 1 is that baseline piece. We can bring up Alan's chart to show you there. And it's that flat area where lactate is not elevated. And keep in mind, as conditions change, as fatigue sets in, your response will change and you will be able to feel it. So if you want to do spot checks, you can do spot checks and see what's going on with your steady zone or your easy zone. Is it still easy, or am I drifting upwards? Be aware though, lactate is a concentration metric, and the absolute number is less meaningful than if you're cruising along at baseline and then it ticks up. As well, the way things feel is often the way things are, meaning if it starts to feel more difficult and your metrics and all this other stuff and the data and the science says it shouldn't feel difficult, trust your feelings. It's getting more difficult. All right. So in the olden days, way back when I started, the game we were playing was to rack up absolutely as much zone 2 as we could. And so we were always trying to be a little bit over that first threshold. And as our fitness improved, this became incredibly demanding from an energetics point of view and total work, fueling. It gets really tough, particularly if you are a larger male because of the powers and paces that you can generate. So the workaround that we used was to do segments of zone 2. And as it turned out, we discovered segments of zone 2 quite often corresponded to Ironman race pace. And so these were segments of race pace for us, and it worked really well. Roll forward 20 years, many people have discovered that for the adaptations that we are seeking with our endurance training, our green zone training, if we are hanging around that first threshold point or easier, we're still getting those adaptations. And as a bonus, the energy demands are not as high. What does that mean? That means we can do much more of it. It means we recover more quickly from it. And therefore, we get more time and intensity, and we get more compounding because we don't get exhausted and tip ourselves over the edge from too much zone 2. So how much should you be doing? Well, the question is not really how much zone 2 should I be doing. The question is, how much am I able to do overall? And that depends on your competitive goals. What I would recommend is get the volume first. So in other words, get yourself to the level of training of the competitive tier that you aspire to compete with. So there are certain levels, certain implied volume and mileage levels for certain competitive tiers. Find out about those. Get yourself to that level of training. And in order to get yourself to that level of training, it's going to be mostly zone 1. When I came back in 2022, I knew that I just couldn't tolerate the harder training, but I wanted to get my volume up. And to get my volume up, I used a lot of zone 1. 95% of my training was in the green zone, and almost all of that was zone 1 training. It worked really well because I tolerated it and I was very consistent with it. And those are the mechanisms: volume, consistency, tolerating, which is really adaptation, how fast you can adapt to it. So don't worry too much, or really at all, about pushing up your endurance targets. And when you're working on general capacity and you've established that volume and you can tolerate the volume, then you can start building in some segments where you are at LT1, that first threshold power and pace, or perhaps slightly over for a little bit more intensive work. And if you're riding, running, training in the hills, using paddles in the water, and using different strength techniques, you're going to be moving around between zone 1, 2, and 3 all the time in your endurance training. You don't need to be kind of a nut about trying to make it absolutely precise, because precision is an illusion. One tip though, if you're new and you're really focusing on that metabolics layer, I did a lot of flat treadmill running and easy indoor cycling because I found it was the only way I could keep my lactate from spiking up. And whenever my lactate was spiking up, I would get very tired. And if I wanted to be able to ride 90 minutes or 2 hours and still be feeling good the next day and not be feeling tired, I had to be very strict with my intensity control. This video was part of the Lemon to Legend online course. To make sure you get all the future episodes, subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you next time.